Hey, college sports fans, the Clemson offense does need to move on and play better than it has been. It did not look like itself overall against LSU in week one. Sometimes that's week one, all right? But we are going to talk about some things that offense really ought to find a way to make happen moving forward if this season is to be salvaged in the form that was expected by so many people in the media. I'm Bill Zimmerman. This is the Reign Supreme Hallway Podcast, season four, and we also expected a lot.
We did. I'm Daniel Shirley. I think sometimes I wish I didn't look like myself, but this is who I am. This is what I've got to work with. So I, Bill, there's just been so much talk, right? And I get, look, if you come out of preseason camp and you're saying negative things, boy, you've got some problems in college football. Who comes out of preseason camp talking negatively about their team? But there's been so much talk about this Clemson team, the Clemson offense, how great everything looks, and everybody's back, and we've got all the production back, and it was not good Saturday, and it hasn't been good for the past five openers. And David Hale from ESPN gave me a stat today. The receivers were 2 for 13 on contested catches Saturday. So it's not all Cade Klubnik. It's not all the offensive line. It's not all Garrett Riley. It's not all not running the ball. It's not all LSU's defense is great. It's not any of those individually. It's all of that. And to me, that's worse. If there was one thing where you went, okay, we could fix that, and this is going to be a heck of an offense. Sign me up for that.
Yeah.
But I don't see that. I see there's 6 or 7 things wrong that have to get fixed. Again, one game, but that's a lot to have to fix. And remember the game against Duke? It was the turnovers.
Right.
Okay, you fix the turnovers, fine, you'll be a good team.
Well, they kind
Okay.
of didn't.
Well, they didn't, right. Until they got later in the season.
Right.
But name one thing that you can fix from Saturday on offense. I think the defense is fine. On offense that you can fix and go, okay, that fixes all of our problems. And I don't think there is one.
No, there isn't. And I think the biggest thing they can do really is establish the run. You talked about that run game, and you don't have very many carries in the first half. I believe that everybody's just saying they had one in the second half. You've got to find a way to get Randall going as the primary back, Easy Amume as the secondary back, split carries well with them. You really do want to find a way to start establishing Gideon Davidson, get him some experience, get his sea legs under him a little bit. You would love to have kind of that triple running back attack that's been uh, seen in several good Clemson seasons in the past. So you would like to see that again. You got to call the plays, right? I mean, I don't know. There is the possibility. We talked about Trevor Lawrence, I think it was 2019, maybe, where they talked about getting out of the RPO and just calling some dedicated run plays. And I've always wondered if that was was Lawrence choosing to pass too often in the RPO and not always making that right decision. So Tony Elliott tried to work something out on that and just say, look, we'll just call it dedicated run play. I don't know how Garrett Riley addresses that, but we have heard in the past that Klubnik does not always call the play that was sent in. So we will find out about that. I don't mean to saddle him with that. We don't know if that's still the case, right? That was 2 years ago that we heard those things. But I also know that what we're seeing, what we saw then when those things were being said, oh, he didn't call the play that was run, that public criticism was a very new thing. And once again, we are seeing more public criticism from Dabo Swinney about this team overall. And I don't think it just pertains to, hey, we got away from the running game. Hey, read between the lines. I think they will start to establish the run this week.
Connect with us on social media. That's at Clemson Kickoff. Whether you're on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, or Facebook, you'll find us there.
I hope so. And who is that with? Is that Randall? Is it Davidson? I don't care who it is. You've got to run the ball. And I don't, I think people get caught up in, oh, we got to be balanced. That means we got to have 25 runs and 25 passes. That's not what it
No.
means. It means you have to have the ability to do both.
So the defense can't tee off on one or the other.
Right. And they did not have the ability to do both on Saturday. They didn't do either very well. So, look, I get Dabo Swinney's answer to a lot of this. He's got to stay positive with this team. It can't be, oh, we're the worst team ever. You lose your team, you start saying those things. I get that. But again, there's not one fix. I think Cade has to play 50 times better than he played.
I know what I did. I know, I made some bad plays and own to it and know that I could have taken over the game. And that's really the hard part. It's, I don't feel like I went and lost the game, but I knew that I could have taken it over. And the second half, Coach put the ball in my hands to take over the game, and I didn't get the job done. And that's really what it comes down to. And as a quarterback and as the person that I am, the player that I am, I want to be able to control the moment and go and take over the game, especially when I've done and proved that I can. And I just didn't go get it done, and I had a bad game and didn't play like myself. And but we'll bounce back and go have a great year. So
he's got to be, as Dabo said yesterday in his news conference, their best player. He was not their best player Saturday. I think it starts with him. It starts with Garrett Riley. And then all the other stuff, I think, spins off of that. I do. I really believe that if your quarterback plays well, and that's why we talk about quarterback in football is the most important position in sports. If your quarterback plays well, the rest of your team gains confidence. Or at least the rest of the offense gains confidence. So, and that is stay in the pocket. That is see the field. All of the things that Cade did not do on Saturday. He said during his news conference today he didn't play like himself. Well, I would take some issue with that. I think he did play like he has played in past big games for most of his career. He has rung up a lot of stats against some overmatched teams. And he's had big moments. I'm not saying he's been bad, but look at the Georgia game last year. Look at the Duke game 2 years ago. Look at the bowl game against Tennessee.
Look at
where
Louisville.
all it was. Louisville last year, South Carolina last year. Right. So he looked a lot like those players who played in that game, all him. He looked a lot like that Saturday. So he's got to see the field better. I think everything starts off of him and Garrett Riley. Run the ball and say, we're going to run the ball no matter what. You might stop it, but we're going to try to run the ball. And then he's got to play better. If those two things happen, I think all the rest of it kind of comes together. The offensive line obviously has to be better. It wasn't good Saturday. But again, I think some of those pressures were on the quarterback. Some of the running game issues were on the offensive coordinator not even giving the running game a chance. And some of the running game issues are on the head coach. Look, Dabo said it. He said, we have to be better. He didn't say Garrett has to be better. We have to be better. And he's talking the collective we as the coaching staff. He's not shying away from responsibility for this, but he's got to hold Garrett Riley responsible and accountable for not running the ball. And he even said that yesterday. He said, I've got to do a better job as the boss or head coach, whatever he said, of making him run the ball. And I think all those things, if they're going to become what people think they are or can be, I think all those things have to happen.
Absolutely. And some of the details of that, Klubnik needs to keep his focus downfield. I think he did a fairly good job of that. Not entirely. I don't think he was surveying the entire field. We've seen some people come up here and there and point out, hey, this guy was open. This guy was open. Social media, message boards. We're seeing those frame grabs. We're seeing those clips where the right reads weren't made on delivering the ball. The other part of that is pocket awareness and understanding. All right, well, if I'm going to heave the ball and get rid of it because I'm about to get hit, I've got to know a safe place where I can get rid of the ball. And one time where he tried to do that and didn't have the right spot picked out on the field, throw got intercepted. And I think he was trying to target Cole Turner and come up with a miracle play at the last second, but without the proper stance because he's being pursued. Ball sails on him. It's not only high above Turner, it was also behind where Turner was running. So those kind of things have to be sorted out. Hey, you got to throw it where the other team can't pick it, and throw. Sometimes that's equates to throw your guy open. Sometimes that just means hey, I'm going to toss it where it won't do us any harm, and maybe my guy goes up and makes a miracle play and comes down with the ball. So the other part of that also is developing that clock. Hey, let's get rid of the ball quickly. I have to know, and you've heard this about many, many quarterbacks in the history of the sport, right? College football, NFL, the clock always changes when you go from high school to college. It goes, or when you go from college to the NFL, and you've got to have that awareness of how quickly you get rid of the ball. And I think sometimes on Saturday and in other big games, Klubnik just hasn't had that clock quite fine-tuned enough. He almost gets rid of it in time, but not quite, and gets hit or starts to run too late, starts to run in very predictable fashion. We certainly saw that. I was glad he wasn't running straight backward 7, 10, 15 yards. We've seen that in the past. I'm very glad to see that worked out. Thank goodness, because I don't know that he was going to get away from anybody, especially an LSU corner. And you see that corner blitz, he almost got outside the tackle box in time to get rid of the ball, and the guy just made a play. I mean, what can you do when a guy is that quick? It was very reminiscent of Trayvon Mullen on Tua Tagovailoa and 44-16 national championship game. One of the plays that really, I think, changed the Alabama offense and the way Tua was acting, and I think that had a big impact on Cade as well. Also, you really, you mentioned that O-line. I do want to get into that as well. They really have to figure out a way, starting with Troy and then against Georgia Tech. I don't think either of those teams is a monster up front. Georgia Tech is starting former Clemson defensive end A.J. Hoffler, who went to the Yellow Jackets in the portal during this past offseason. Hoffler was kind of seen as developmental around these parts, so we'll see how much Georgia Tech has been able to develop him. But it kind of tells me that, hey, if that's who they're starting, this offensive line has a chance to get some things going against the Jackets as well as this week against Troy. And they just have to maybe have a short memory about how badly things went against LSU. Get back to focusing on yourself. The old Dabo Swinneyism of, we can't let Clemson beat Clemson. I think maybe that's going to be a key for the offensive line.
Yeah, I think the offensive line, Bill, maybe the biggest surprise to me, the offensive line and how it played. Cade, I don't know. I think you have kind of come to the realization that maybe that's who he is in these big games. You thought you would see more growth out of him in his third year as a starter. It's one game. Maybe we do. Maybe he cleans up these problems, and it is just one game. But the offensive line, to me, really surprised me. I thought with that many starters back and Matt Luke, running the show with that group, that this offensive line was starting to turn a corner to be a strength for this program. And, maybe it is with the recruiting that this group is doing, but there were some busts on Saturday.
Yeah. Be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. It's free. It's the best place to catch all our episodes, and it's the best place for you to comment with your reactions.
Is that Sadler, really kind of his first big time playing in that kind of a game? Maybe. Tristan Lee didn't play great. I've seen a lot of criticisms of him. So they've got to get a lot of that stuff cleaned up too, because they played even last year, the Georgia game. Remember how bad that was? I didn't think the offensive line played poorly against Georgia.
Agreed.
Saturday, I thought they played poorly.
Yeah.
So, and I don't, there were some other games. I don't think they played well against Louisville. I don't think they played well against South Carolina. But they did not play well Saturday. So that group has to play better. And is that moving people around? Is it getting new people in the five? Who knows? In the starting five? Who knows? But I think when you play as poorly offensively as this team played Saturday, I believe everything should be on the table. Because I don't think there was one group that played well. The running backs, you can say, well, they didn't get a chance. Well, how about pass protect better? Adam Randall, supposed to be one of the leaders of the team, runs right by the blitzer on the first drive. So, Dabo has pointed out Gideon Davidson missing some pass protection early. So I think everything should be on the table to try to get this group going and being what it can be, because and we said in the last episode, so we don't want to harp on it, but if you told me LSU was going to score 17 points, I figured Clemson won the game.
Yeah.
So now against Troy and against Georgia Tech and everybody that's coming up, we have to find out, was it LSU's defense was that good? Or is Clemson's offense not as good as we think? And I mean, that's why we play the games on Saturday afternoons.
Yeah. And I'm willing to give the offensive line kind of that week one grace. Like, okay, maybe they did some things, got out of their shoes a little bit, didn't do what they really are accustomed to doing. I also think there's, as you said, the chance to experiment. Against Troy, you should be able to rotate a lot of guys, seek out maybe some different combinations that work better. Maybe even against Georgia Tech, you can try some of those things again. So you'll get a chance the next couple of weeks, I think, for that offensive line to gel and pull together and be the best version of itself that it can be. And I'm willing to look at the body of work on that, just as we kind of alluded to with Klubnik, but I think even more so with the offensive line. Look at the body of work overall and say, hey, they're on an upward trend. Okay, this was a drop back. This was a correction, if you will, financial market followers, but things should really be able to bounce back. And then, we picked three things. You kind of mentioned the receivers, and we were talking before this. I want you to hit us with that stat that you saw online about the contested catches against LSU.
Yeah, that was David Hale from ESPN, our buddy. I had him on my podcast this morning here in Georgia, and he said that they were 2 for 13 on contested catches. And look, I mean, your guys got to make plays for you. That's it. That you had the quarterback can't make mistakes, can't throw the ball away, can't turn the ball over, but your guys around you have to make plays. I mean, we criticize Cade all we want to. That throw over the shoulder to Wesco that was like a 30-yard ball down the field, right in the basket. Yeah, there's a guy defending you. It's not practice.
Right.
It's not 7-on-7. It's a physical game where you have to stand up and make a play. And he didn't make a play.
Well, and we'd heard that he'd added weight, that TJ Moore added weight. I don't know that they're really learning how to use it yet.
That might be it. I mean, that might be it. Maybe they're adjusting. Again, we can say this 50 times in this episode. It's just one game. Well, that's all we've got to go off of.
Right.
Is one game. That's why people like us do stuff like this. Is we talk about the games. We're not the only ones. There's other podcasts out there. There's TV shows. There's ESPN. There's, all the other networks.
Well, some people just talk about CGIing the coach's girlfriend into a running back play or whatever, but that's not our gig.
But I mean, if it was baseball, we would talk about a couple of games because, they play 7 games, 5, 6, 7 games a week.
Yeah.
Basketball, they play 3 or 4 games a week. Football, they play 1. And that's all we have that's the only data points we have are what we saw Saturday night. So it can get better. Yes, it can be just one game. Yes, it can be LSU is really damn good. And I think all that's true. But Bill, you can't blow it off as just one game either.
Right.
And if you're the quarterback who has not played well in big games, you can't say that's not who I am. It kind of is who you are until you change it. So, that's the thing is, remember when Dabo first took over and there was a lot of talk, Clemson can't get over the hump. Well, yeah, you don't get over the hump until you do. You can't beat Florida State until you do. Okay. You can't win a national ACC title until you do. That's how this works. So as we sit here right now in September of 2025, that's exactly who Cade has been in his career. He's had some big games. He's won 2 ACC titles. Those, not denying that. But the Tennessee Bowl game where he looked like he was spooked, the Duke game where he turned the ball over and over, and not just him, other guys did too. The Georgia game last year where he was really spooked. South Carolina, Louisville. I mean, go through the list. If you look at the losses that he's had in his career, Texas, he threw for a lot of yards. Well, they kind of had to because they were down big, right? You know, I mean, you go look at the Miami game a couple years ago in Miami, went into overtime. That's the game which you talk about all the time where he didn't run the play at the end. He spooked, right? So, you know, Florida State at home a couple of years ago. He played a pretty good game until he's standing in the pocket holding the ball and doesn't see the blitzer coming right at him. Pops him. Scoop and score, touchdown. That's also the the play at the end where he's, what are you doing?
Yes.
That's not the play. The South Carolina game at the end of the game last year, throws the pick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of examples of that in his career. And I like Cade a lot. I think he's been a good player.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm not, but this is when you say, Bill, I get bugged by people who talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And I'm not saying that's who he is. But when you say that's not who I've been, when it's exactly who you've been in these kinds of games, that's not having some self-awareness. I mean, this is not a one-off. If Saturday was a one-off and all these other games hadn't happened, all right, I'll give you that. I will absolutely give you that. You know, I had a friend of mine pointed out this morning that when Dabo first couple of years of his tenure, that I wasn't the biggest fan. I was wrong. I can admit that. They were 6-7. Believe me, I was not happy.
Nope.
I didn't think he was the right guy for the job. I absolutely was wrong. I don't mind admitting that. I'm wrong 5 times a day before I get out of the house. That's fine. I don't mind it. But I want to be wrong about Cade. I absolutely want him to prove us wrong and prove the other critics wrong. That's not who you are. Okay, don't be that guy anymore then. See the field. You know, I mean, call the right play if that's not what's happening. Whatever's going on, fix it. Yeah. Don't talk about it. What's Dabo say all the time? Don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah. There you go.
Go do it. Go do it.
There you go. And like he, you know, to his credit, another thing he said was, hey, last year it was about learning. It was about accountability, owning up to his teammates, and then saying, hey, we're going to get better and I'm going to get better. Last year he did that, you know, for the most part. They were, you know, they were 10-4. They won 10 games. You know, they got to the playoffs. Every playoff team but one ends the season with a loss. It was in the first round for Clemson. You know, yes, that Texas comeback, he showed heart and fight and found a way to get himself operating better. It may have been a little bit of get up and let up on Texas part, playoff game at home, guys start feeling good. And, you know, they certainly found a way to respond once Clemson's comeback narrowed the gap. Klubnik, to his credit, kept playing well right up to the end. So I'm not writing him off. I'm not saying he shouldn't be Clemson's quarterback. I sure would like to see Vizina get some experience, but that's not about saying, hey, let's make Vizina the starter and bench Klubnik. That's about, hey, safety valve, right? That's about being able to take a play. If you know, if a guy in basketball misses 8 shots, don't you put the backup in for a little bit? Give that starter a chance to collect himself. And we haven't seen, as we talked about in the past, we haven't seen Clemson's ability to do that. It would be nice to see Vizina get out there. Backup quarterback Christopher Vizina is who I'm referencing, in case I don't remember if I said his first name. Let's see him get some meaningful snaps, you know, and maybe even in there with the ones, but at least the receivers in the twos are pretty good, right? I mean, we saw Tyler Brown. Well, Tyler Brown's a starter now with Antonio Williams hurt, but there's talent throughout that wide receiver room for him to work with. You'd like to see him get those tries. Maybe Vizina is able to put a couple of runs on the tape out there for future opponents without putting Klubnik at risk, because Klubnik is your starter, is your defined starter, and I don't think anybody's calling for him to get benched. But it would be nice to see the development for next year, but also situationally here or there to be able to get that experience and make opponents see something different. We'll see what happens with that. Troy is coming in as more than a 30-point underdog. I don't care about the spread, but it is indicative of, hey, this is a team where if this Clemson football locker room reacts properly and they get out on the field prepared and able to play to the fullest of their potential, you should be able to see guys like that get in the game. You should be able to see more runs for Gideon Davidson and get him some attempts with some pass protection and allow him to work those things out.
Yeah, I would hope so. I want to see, that's what I want to see this week, Bill, is running the ball and being more efficient offensively. Don't have these big busts that we saw from this team this past week. And hopefully those are the things that get straightened out. If they don't, well, then it's going to be a long season for us on this podcast talking about this team, because if they can't get them figured out this week, look, Georgia Tech's better than I think some people want to admit. I think Georgia Tech's really good, and they're physical, and they're not going to, you think, I'm not comparing them to LSU up front, but
right,
they're pretty good up front. So I think there's some things. You've run the ball this week, be efficient, be smart with the ball, play well at quarterback, call a good game. And I think you'll be okay, but I think we've got to see it this week. I you know how I am. I'm a see it before I believe it guy, and I've got to see it this week. I think before we go forward.
There it is. There's the pregame locker room speech right there. Any Clemson coach that wants to use it, steal it, say it yourself. No need to credit. Daniel just nailed it. So we will see how it goes this week and in the weeks to come. It's not about analyzing matchups this week. It's about analyzing what Clemson goes out and does and whether or not they play Clemson football when they're on the field. So everybody hopefully will be able to enjoy this game. Hopefully it won't be like, what was that game a couple of years ago? Charleston Southern or someone where it was way closer than it should have been. And I went to a Clemson club viewing to watch a game and we were all just kind of looking around. I don't want to see that this week. I want to be able to see Clemson firing on all cylinders and answering. And that's what we saw last year against App State too. So let's see that turn out again from the team and performance-wise. We will come at you after that game with what Daniel and I did see through our viewpoints and share them with you, break it all down. Really appreciate everyone who's checking in and watching the podcast, listening to the podcast. Hope you're really enjoying it. Until our next episode, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.